Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us at this early hour on a webinar in collaboration with Circular Edinburgh on Circular Office. And the topic of discussion today will be adapting to change in obviously light of the world that we're got used to over the past few months as such. A quick sort of recap on the platform that we're using today, Zoom. So the session is being recorded. It's only the speakers that would be sort of, you'll be able to see and hear. All of the attendees, your cameras are just automatically set as being off, as well as your microphones, but we do invite all of you to please use the chat function, which should be at the bottom of your screen. If you have any sort of comments, questions, reflections, general thoughts, please do post in there. We really encourage discussion around this, and we will sort of monitor it and kind of pick it up towards the end of the webinar session as well. Just, if you'd like to just send a message to the panelists, you can select either just to the panelists or to all panelists and attendees so everyone else can see it as well. It's up to you. So to get going, this is our agenda for today. We will be with you for an hour, so we won't keep you too long. And we'll start off with just a quick sort of welcome and introduction from us at Zero Waste Scotland and from our colleague at Circular Edinburgh. And we will then recap a bit on what Circular Office is and how that fits into our programme of work, and some top tips around what you can sort of think about what you can do in your own offices to make them more circular. And then we will hear from three great presenters around how to kind of, adapting to change in the workplaces. So they're kind of lessons from the business side of things. And after that, we'll have a bit of time for some Q&A. So again, I would invite you to post any questions or reflections into the chat box so we can review them and ask the questions to the presenters as well before we wrap up for the day and look to finish by 10:30. Oops, pardon me. So my name is Bella Raposa. I work in Zero Waste Scotland. I'm a circular procurement project manager, and I manage a specific project which we'll tell you a bit more about. You'll hear about it from my colleague Claire Guerin, who's the sector manager for sustainable procurement also in Zero Waste Scotland. And we're joined today as a collaborative approach to this webinar by Lauren Ridgely, who's the project officer and the Edinburgh Chamber of Commerce working on the Circular Edinburgh Circular Economy project. And I will pass over to Lauren as a bit of an introduction to Circular Edinburgh.
Good morning, everyone. So yeah, as Bella said, I'm the project officer at Circular Edinburgh. And at Circular Edinburgh, we work in partnership with Zero Waste Scotland at a city and regions approach to circular economy within Scotland. And so our kind of mission for Circular Edinburgh is to help the city become a more circular city. So our hopes and dreams is that Edinburgh will become a circular city in the future. And we are going to try and achieve this by encouraging and supporting local businesses to embed circular economy thinking and principles and practices within their business models. And as well as helping local organisations implement more circular practices. Through our work with Zero Waste Scotland, we support the development of innovative circular economy projects that can receive support and potential funding from Zero Waste Scotland and other partners. So yeah, we're really excited to host this webinar in collaboration with Zero Waste Scotland, as facilities management is a key sector for the project. And there's going to be lots of changes within the next few months for everyone going back into the office. So I think this would be a really, really good webinar to try and highlight some of the circular opportunities that you can implement. And yes, just as Bella has put on the screen, we have our contact details. So I'll be sending out a follow-up email this afternoon with my contact details and the presentation from this morning. But yeah, if you'd like to get in touch, we're on social media, Twitter and LinkedIn, and then our email, and we've got our own website on the Chamber of Commerce. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lauren. I will now pass you over to my colleague Claire, who will do a bit of a recap on Circular Office and our programme of work as well. Claire, just giving you the
Thank you.
remote control.
Yeah. Okay, great. Is it moving up? Yeah, okay. If you want to move, yeah. Okay, great. Okay. So first of all, I won't spend too long talking about the circular economy. Many of you will be familiar with it, and also it is a subject area that's picked up in the speakers' presentations. But just the important thing to remember is it's a transition, it's a whole entire economy approach to moving away from the way that we currently do things, to moving towards keeping products and materials looping in our economy for as long as possible and at as high a value as possible to extract the most value from them. So that's all I want to say on this one, because I know Barbara is going to cover it in a bit of depth as well. Stella, are you able to move on my slides? Because for some reason it's not picking up. I'm just trying to move it on. Yeah. There we go. Okay, so ProCirc is a project that myself and Stella are involved in. I just wanted to highlight a bit about ProCirc, as I'd love for all of you to be involved in it. There's 11 partners in ProCirc in 6 countries around the North Sea region. It's part funded by the Interreg North Sea region area, and our target areas that we're focusing on, and these came from the results of research undertaken on the greatest opportunities for circularity, embedding circularity in terms of carbon savings, cost savings, and opportunities in the market around construction and infrastructure, furniture, which you'll hear more about today from John Ross, ICT, textiles, such as workplace textiles, such as uniforms, carpets, blinds, etc., and single-use items as well. So particularly catering, disposables is an area of focus for us as well. Our list of partners is over there on the screen as well. Another UK partner we do a lot of work with is Business in the Community as well. Okay, so one of the areas we're really focusing on is, one of the work package areas we're focusing on is setting up communities of practice to really sort of help to learn, collaborate and share the pilots we're undertaking in the sector areas that you saw on the previous slide. And 2 of the areas we're really focusing on at the moment is, you can see on the slide, is we've been doing a lot of work supporting the white paper that was recently produced for the Scottish Circular Economy Infrastructure Forum, and which is a group of key players in the infrastructure sector, such as, you know, Network Rail and the airports, so railways, airports, roads, etc., in Scotland. And the other area that we're focusing on, which is links with today, is the Circular Office as well. So we're partnering with Circular Cities and Regions around the Circular Office initiative. Okay, so what is the Circular Office? Well, it's very much about looking at, if you think back to the list of sector area products we're looking at, a lot of those occur in the workplace environment, such as furniture, ICT, textiles, and single-use disposables. So it's really about focusing on how a holistic approach on creating a more circular office and workplace that we work in. Through this, we're running a number of webinars, such as the one today, but also we're going to be starting a LinkedIn group as well, which I'd really encourage all of you to take part in, and Spella will invite everyone to take part in that as well. So I'll move on to the next slide. Okay, so this was just a brief, we did a survey, 39 of you responded, thank you very much. And it was to really find out just a little bit of background information on how much social distancing measures and increased working from home was affecting you. Found out that, you know, extremely or very formed a majority of the answers. So we all are very much being affected by that. We've seen the recent changes or proposed changes in social distancing requirements. What I think is a bit of a movable piece at the moment. You might have seen in the media that there's unfortunately spikes of the return of COVID-19 happening in some countries, like Australia are getting increased cases, and America certainly are. So it is something that is very definitely not gone away yet. So I think it's a bit of a movable area, this on the social distancing. Okay, so you're planning to downsize, repurpose, or relocate? Yeah, so a lot of businesses here reflected either no change or don't know, but I think that's reflective of the size of the business. There was a lot of micro and small SMEs took part in this survey. So I think for those organizations, they've been very forward thinking in planning with their furniture and equipment. I would say with a trend we're finding is with larger organizations that either in the don't know or they may not have really planned what to do with their equipment yet. And we've been running this survey with a number of groups. Okay. And to those that, so they answered whether they might be likely to have surplus furniture or equipment, and where they answered yes or maybe, they then answered a further question about it as well, which on the next slide. Okay. So on this one, some of it was redeployment and repurposing internally, which is excellent. You'll hear more about that in John Ross's presentation. And you know that they're very much sort of sending the office equipment to support staff working at home or supporting local reuse organisations and reuse options. So that's fantastic to see and very much in line with the circular office. Just move on to the next slide. Okay, so in the time I've got left on mine, great. Okay, so I've got sort of 5 minutes. I wanted to focus on circular office top tips. Now these are taken from a recently produced guide on the circular office, but also just general points to consider. And the ones I wanted to pick up on was wasn't going to dwell too much on repurposing for home working because that is going to be covered in the next presentation, and certainly the concept of remanufacturing, the benefits of that will be covered. But I wanted to pick up on, you know, if consider, first of all, do you need to buy new? And you'll see from the next presentation that you don't necessarily, but if for some reason that you do because you cannot repurpose what you have, then it's absolutely critical that you look at design principles that make it easy to repair, refurbish, availability of spare parts, guarantees, warranties, just to keep that product in useful life for as long as possible. Looking at reduce and reuse, very much we're focusing on reducing single-use plastics as much as possible. And you might have seen there has been some media around the rise in single-use items again during the COVID pandemic. Obviously for medical equipment, that's an entirely different purpose and reason. But for catering items in particular, we've seen some increases. Now, the guidance does state that, you know, reusable is perfectly hygienic and acceptable. The important thing, of course, with the current pandemic is hygiene, hand washing, and social distancing, as it is an airborne disease. So if you do come across media around supporting single-use items for catering, we do have a press release and some notes and some pointers on that we can pass on through Circular Edinburgh, some guidance around that. Reusable containers in the office as well. Ourselves, we switched to glass milk bottles with a silicone lid tops to reduce our consumption of plastics. And that's been very successful. Daily milk deliveries when we were at the office. Obviously, we're not there at the moment. And tips around reducing food waste. So considering more plant-based options on catering menus and sort of incentivizing, you know, a reduction in meat as it's high carbon. Let's see how much more time I've got on this. A couple of minutes. IT equipment I wanted to pick up on as well. always worth looking at. In terms of carbon impacts, one of the most impactful things you can do is extend the lifespan of your IT equipment. And there's a recent European study on this. You can extend the useful life to at least sort of 4 years, really decreases the carbon impact. Also look at options like, could you lease? Again, choosing IT equipment that's easy to repair and upgrade is critical. Can it be redeployed within the organisation? And working closely with your supplier as well to look at take-back schemes as well, where it reaches the end of its useful life and its memory and spec can't be upgraded, and you no longer have a use for it, that the organisation and the supplier can take it back and refurbish for resale or remanufacture, taking the most useful components from it as well. The only other thing I was going to emphasise here was about collaboration, how important it is. And I know Barbara will pick up on this. It's so important to work with your suppliers on circular solutions. It involves extensive engagement, but also internally as well as externally as well. You really need to get buy-in from your employees for adaptation to change, as well as working with your suppliers. Move on to the next slide.
Yeah, that was brilliant. Yeah.
Yes, I wanted to keep to time because obviously we only have
it's perfect.
I want to run over, and I want to allow time for questions as well. So I will pass on to the next speaker without further ado.
Yeah, perfect. No, that was just a way of a bit of a recap on ProCirc, as well as what Circular Office is about and how it fits within our programme of work and the kind of top tips around it. And now we'll move on to sort of lessons from the business, where we can see potentially what we've been talking about, how that's actually been implemented in businesses and in terms of adapting to change. So without further ado, I'll pass over to Elaine from Edinburgh Remakery. Here we go. Elaine, you just need to unmute yourself. There we go.
Thank you very much. I'm absolutely delighted to be here today to discuss how we can respond to the COVID crisis and adapt our thinking to tackle the other crisis, which is namely the climate emergency. And I thought I would just have a slideshow sort of playing while I'm speaking. So to try and a picture paints 1,000 words, and I hope it depicts the type of activity that we do at the Edinburgh Remakery. So as been discussed by the other speakers, Scotland's huge consumption habit has a major cause of carbon emissions driving the climate emergency. This means that it's vital that all businesses and organisations and consumers across Scotland change the way that they live and work to become more sustainable. The Scottish public and private sector are collectively estimated to spend just over 100 billion each year in products and services. And what we're trying to show is that one of the most effective things that you can do is to reduce your organisation's consumption of new resources. So again, Claire has talked about the circular economy, so I don't really want to go into too great depth. But a lot of the support that is offered by Circular Edinburgh and Zero Waste Scotland focuses on products and services in categories identified as having the greatest environmental and social benefits for circular buying, namely the furniture, textiles, construction, infrastructure, ICT and single-use items. Reuse and repair is essential to the development of Scotland's circular economy. And reuse and repair isn't something new. It's something that your grannies and granddads would have done. It's the make, do and mend type activity. And that's really going to be crucial as we move forward. So as we emerge from lockdown and work through the easing and the phasings, we emerge to a new normal, a new way of delivering services, a new office, a new way of working. So where does the Edinburgh Remakery fit into all that? Well, the Edinburgh Remakery, as you can see the pictures there, was established in 2011 as Remade in Edinburgh, and in 2016 became the Edinburgh Remakery. We're a social enterprise with charitable status, and we're all about the circular economy. We're all about reuse and repair. We're also multi-award winning, but I don't have time to go into all our awards. we specialise in 3 pillars that I think will be very useful for the circular office, namely furniture, refurbished IT, which that was good timing there. There's the picture of our refurbished IT, and also behavioural change through our workshops and education. So I just wanted to go into a little bit of depth on that. So firstly, our furniture. Your new office may need less desks. You might want to get rid of surplus that you have, or you may want to consider buying second-hand, as Claire touched upon. Again, this is something that Edinburgh Remakery has been doing for a long, long time. So we specialise in getting donations of furniture, and we repair and refurbish it, but we also teach people how to repair and refurbish it. What I would say is that we are very specific about the donations that we take on furniture. So whilst you, as you are looking at your offices, might have quite a surplus of equipment with regards to furniture, third sector in particular are quite concerned that we might get this deluge, tsunami of donations of furniture. So again, I think Zero Waste Scotland and Circular Edinburgh and procurement will look at how we can coordinate that better. But certainly it's something that you should consider to donate your furniture in a resourceful way. The second thing is buying second-hand furniture. It's all too easy to just sort of press the button through procurement and buy brand new. It would be great if organisations could think differently, think about buying second-hand. And as Claire touched upon, second-hand is nothing to be scared of. In fact, many of the social enterprises and charities within Edinburgh and in Scotland are what's known as Revolve accredited. So that is an accredited certificate through Zero Waste Scotland that second-hand and charity shops have to go through stringent measures to make sure that the practices that they have and the services and products that they produce are of high quality. So we were already being very mindful of that before COVID, and obviously COVID has just put another layer on that. So we would really urge you to consider not just buying new, but to buy second-hand. And as John will go on to discuss, how your current equipment can be refurbished to adapt to your new circumstances. The other item that Claire touched upon was your IT and waste, electrical waste. During COVID, we've all been having spring cleans. Offices are having to adapt. I'm sure many offices have got cupboards full of old IT equipment that you don't quite know what to do with and how to get rid of. Again, that's something that the Edinburgh Remakery has long been established with regards to our refurbished IT. So we are very keen that we can take your old IT equipment, end of life equipment, rather than it landing in landfill, which is not allowed anyway. There's a resource there to enable you to send your old e-waste responsibly and keep it in life longer. In fact, during COVID, Edinburgh Remakery, that's all we've been doing. We've shifted our model to ensure that we're getting refurbished IT equipment out to those that have really need it because of digital isolation. But we also have traditionally shown people IT repair skills. So thinking about your e-waste is absolutely crucial. And again, if you're buying equipment because of home working and what have you, you don't necessarily have to buy new IT equipment. You could buy refurbished equipment. And thirdly, all this takes behavioural change. It's going to have to get your ideas looking at circular economy, and your staff. You've got to bring your staff along with you on that journey. And being circular can be really great for your staff. It can make them feel empowered and come up with suggestions and make them feel that they're doing something good both for the planet, for your business, and for other people in society. So again, we do a lot of training around behavioural change. We did a lot of workshops. We're having to adapt how we do that in the new normal. But again, we're very keen. A lot of businesses have come to us for bespoke away days, looking at the circular economy. Claire touched upon it as well, that collaboration is absolutely key with this, and we have been so heartened during COVID that the collaborations between the third sector and business has never been stronger and better. And there's been a lot of hashtags: building back better, business for good, never more needed. So that collaboration can help you as a business become a circular office and adapt practices, but can also really help the third sector do a lot of good. So we want to see those collaborations and partnerships going forward. And again, it's part of not reinventing the wheel. If you can tap into organisations that can provide you with support, then we want to be able to do that. Circular economy places value on the well-being of people and the planet alike to eliminate waste, and it makes it the perfect response to the challenges that we face. So I would really hope that as we move forward, the Edinburgh Remakery can join forces with you and help collaborate to help make your office more circular through the work streams of IT disposal and refurbishment and furniture donations. So let's make Edinburgh a better place, both during COVID and beyond. And we hope to engage with you soon. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Elaine. That was brilliant. It's so nice to see and hear about, obviously, about a local example, which, you know, especially for those who may not be aware of Edinburgh Remakery already, it's just nice to put it on the map as such. Yeah, interesting. You know, I love your point about circular economy is about putting the value on people and the planet. So really, you know, kind of recognizing that there's a clear relationship where we can improve that if we find what benefits both. Okay, so we will move on to John Ross from Kinross Wooden Products Company, who will let us know about the different adaptation plans they have in terms of post-COVID world in our offices. Here you go, John.
Thanks very much, Stella. Morning, everybody. Just a little bit of background. We've been involved in the circular economy since before it was called the circular economy, going back into the mid-90s. What we're going to look at is really based on the work we've done with clients over the last 20-25 years within the public sector, within the environmental sector, with people like WWF, Zero Waste Scotland, Forestry Commission, a lot of the environmental bodies. And it's going to look very much at, from this point of view, the physical impact that COVID is having on offices and what that may actually produce and ways in which we can handle that. Yeah, it's not spell. I can't change the screen from my end. There we go. So what we're going to look at here is a typical office building that we would work in. So this is a public sector body. It's a local authority. It's one of their headquarter buildings. This is one floor of 3. And in this building, that floor has about 280 people on it, and the building itself has occupancy of between about 850 and 900. Interestingly, back in January, we were having conversations with them about remanufacturing all of the furniture in that building to a smaller footprint so that they could get 1,000+ people into the building. And a lot of that was just the pressure on physical space, and changes in technology means that large format desks, you'll all have seen them, great big corner desks that are 1800 and were designed and built for a world that was evolved around cathode ray monitors. And that desk size conformed with the 1992 European VDU directive, which said you had to have a desk of a certain size to meet the ergonomic requirements for a user. But as technology has changed, it moves a lot faster than furniture. So if we look at this building, an awful lot of the furniture in there is, some of it is only 2 years old, but most of it goes back to 15 to 25 years old. And that's typical of most public sector bodies. They don't replace furniture every year. They will use it for as long as possible. What we're going to look at now is the situation of what is the physical impact of 2 meter or 1 meter separation. We're not going to look at the whole building, we'll look at one small area. Spella, if you could press the button on that one. So we're just going to look at the bit that's come up in red. And if we can press the button again.
You are controlling the screen, yeah, right. So keep going, yep.
Oh, there we are. Yeah, oh, yeah, oh, there. Oh, it's moving around a bit too quick now, yeah. I think I'm pressing the button and it happens a few minutes later. Okay, so what, there we are. I'll move on. So what we're going to look at here is the impact of social distancing at 2 meters on a bank of 8 people working together. So this is part of the floor plan. This is the as it sits on the floor at the moment. These desks are what are called 1800 corner desks. So the longest edge is 1800. You then have one which is 1200, one at 800 and one at 600. And it's the standard footprint desk that sits in a lot of public sector buildings. The bank of 8 that we're going to look at, you'll see at the top there's a thing called an ST40. That's a type of cupboard. And then beyond that is the central corridor that everyone goes up and down. So the first thing in 2 meter social distancing is anyone who's sitting beside a cupboard that faces into a corridor is now within 2 meters of the corridor and therefore won't be able to sit there. But if we look at this bank of 8 desks, the person sitting right in the middle with the blue dot on their chair, the red line denotes a 2 meter radius, and you can see where it intersects pretty much every other desk. As far as we understand, that means nobody can sit or be in that area. And you'll see therefore that with 2 meter social distancing, of the 8 desks that are in there, you've got one that you can definitely use, and you may possibly be able to use the one in the bottom right hand corner, as long as the person in the chair doesn't move too closely into their desk. So the simple impact on this one is that is going to go from 8 to 1, possibly 2 people using 2 meter social distancing. What we'll look at now is the impact of 1 meter in the same area. So now you've got a 1 meter social distancing area. Same desks, same layout, same sizes, but now you can see it has a much less impact. You would still have an issue of passing behind people, but again, what we're finding from the dialogue we're having with people is if you are simply passing behind someone, it's less of an issue than it is if you're actually sitting down, you're on the phone, you're working away, you're breathing. So actually that kind of transit space is not quite as important, but within 1 meter, you can see here that instead of losing 7 of the 8, we might have to reconfigure 1 or 2 and work it that way. Now, this has a very, very real impact on the buildings, and we'll come into that in terms of furniture usage. But what I can also show you is what can happen if you remanufacture the existing furniture to a smaller size. So what we're going to look at now is the 2 meter social distancing in the same physical area, but this time with a smaller desk. The interesting thing for us is this public sector body had already accepted moving to smaller desks before COVID. That was part of their plan. So actually just following the plan they already had of a smaller desk, and this is based on 1400. What it allows you to do is in the same physical space, you can now get 6 people working with a 2 meter exclusion, and you use the cupboards to create physical distancing between the desks. There may be a requirement to look at the back of the desk for some sort of screening, but the reality is you can still have 6 people in a space that would have been 8, and you're using the same furniture, you're just remanufacturing it. So if we take that and start looking very much at the impact of social distancing at 2 meters, anecdotally, you're going to have 50 to 80% fewer people in the office space. That is likely to produce the impact that you're going to have to get rid of 50 to 80% of the furniture. There is an argument that says, well, just leave it where it is. The problem you have with that is part of what you're trying to implement is an environment which is safe for staff. Having desks everywhere, which are a potential contamination area that need to be cleaned all of the time, if you just leave the desks in there, you're going to have to clean all of the desks 2 or 3 times a day. Also, human nature in an office is if you have lots of space beside you, you will spread out and use it. And it tends to be, again, anecdotally, you expand to the space available rather than the space you need. So it's highly likely that large organizations with large furniture installations are going to have to get rid of furniture. More of the people are going to be working from home. We've already seen that. I think we all now know that people are working from home and trying to cope as best they can in the environments they're in. But I think that is going to become the norm. And again, anecdotally, from talking to clients and people in business, they've now accepted that you can work from home. So that's going to drive that. What you are going to have to do is create wider access ways. you're going to have to use physical barriers to define areas. Unfortunately, there are going to be what's being called at the moment the red zones. These are the areas that are very, very difficult to manage. Toilets, stairwells, entrance and exit, kitchens that are often built in for tea and coffee prep need to be addressed. But there is also going to be a need to create home office desks as we do this. If we look at 1 metre, all of the bottom ones are the same. You still have those physical problems in the building, but the fact is that at 1 metre, you're probably looking at 10 to 20% fewer people in the office and a corresponding impact in terms of the furniture that may go to waste. So what are the practical measures you can start to look at? Undoubtedly, COVID is changing the way we work in offices. And on some level, there is going to be an awful lot of furniture and things in the office which are going to have to be moved out. You pretty much have 2 options. The wood recycling industry can process the chipboard that is in desks, but it has to represent between 2 and 5% of the volume going through. I won't go into all the technical reasons, but when you remanufacture or when you recycle timber, it goes back into the chipboard industry, and existing chipboard gets ground down to fines, which is a very small point. You can't just recycle all of it en masse. It has to be a blended mix, and there's going to be real problems. So you're going to have to look at what you do with it. You either landfill it or remanufacture it. You're also going to have to produce desks for people at home. Most large organizations are unlikely to just let people go off and buy their own desks. There's all sorts of issues that can come into that. But you also have to try and work on the basis that at some point in the future, you may want that furniture to come back into the offices. And one of the reasons companies don't turn around to staff and say, oh, just here's a catalog, go and buy your own furniture in the office, is you need continuity of standard, you need continuity of supply chain, and interconnectivity of the components in the furniture. So you need to have something that's suitable both for home and office. Meeting rooms are going to have to change. You're going to have to create green zones where people can be safe and there's wider space with fresh air. The red zones are something we have to address. And technology and new ways of working has to be adapted. And a lot of people are playing catch up. And within the local authority world, they have historically been desk-based. So people have desktop computers. And certainly with one of the ones we were working with, the property department were then told you're working from home, but what they then found is there was 1 laptop for every 3 people in that department. So people are now using home computers. And one of the other things you have to lose, whatever you put into that building needs to be wiped clean and easily cleaned. So there's a huge amount of stuff that's going on. From our point of view, and for someone who's been involved in this for a long time, this is probably the greatest opportunity for us to really stimulate circular principles into procurement. It's forcing change. My biggest concern is that small private companies can do it quite quickly, but the public sector and government have to move quickly and be very flexible in their procurement. And I'm sure Barbara will talk about that in her talk. But now is the time to innovate. Remanufacturing should come to the fore because we cannot afford to throw this furniture away and simply go and buy new to put into people's offices, because it just is going to be a catastrophic environmental impact. There's about 560,000 people work for the public sector in Scotland. If 1 in 4 of those is sitting at a desk, that's 140,000 people. And if 80% of them lose their desks, the impact is enormous. We have to have a solution that isn't just throw it away and buy new. I think that's me coming up to my 10 minutes. Thanks very much indeed. Sorry if I get a bit ranty. Those of you that know me, I've been doing this for a long time and do get a bit, we need to do better. But I think this is our opportunity to create change. And it's got to be more than just a token gesture. We actually have to be doing whole scale remanufacturing, has to come to the fore rather than throw away and buy new. That's me. Thanks very much indeed.
Thank you so much, John. That was fascinating, and I'm sure it has and will give a lot to think about to the attendees. And yeah, interested to kind of hear any reflections from everyone as well, either in the chat or just after the next presentation, and a bit of a kind of Q&A session as well. I will now pass over to Barbara Morton to discuss where the role of procurement sits in sort of adapting to change and the resilient recovery. So just giving Barbara, yep, so if you just
Okay, thank you very much, Stella, and good morning, everyone. Thanks very much, John, for the platform. I'm just going to launch into the role of procurement in a resilient recovery, and you set me up nicely for that. Just as a bit of background, Sustainable Procurement Limited is working with the Zero Waste Scotland on the Circular Procurement Project, ProCirc, and we work, some of you will know us through the Sustainable Procurement Tools, and we're working with the Scottish Government on Climate and Procurement Forum. So I'll just pick up on one or two of the points that the excellent presenters have already made and talk about how procurement can help drive more circular behaviours. I have the same issue as the others, I think, Stella. I'm clicking and...
Yeah, if you just click on the screen and then, there we go.
Yep. There we are, it's working. You just have to be patient, okay? So the outline, very briefly in my 10 minutes, the role of procurement in a resilient recovery. I'm going to talk about the use of resources in the new normal, as we've already been discussing, responding to what new working environments will look like, changing procurement plans, which as John and others have described, that's happening in real time right now, and perhaps a greater appreciation of what we already own. Then the third point will be opportunities, as John's just said, opportunities for buyers and suppliers. If we're up for this, if we're going to be brave about how we seek to encourage more circular behaviours and more circular activity. And I'll be touching on diversification, on innovation, opening up new markets, and particularly on developing new skills, all needing to be done at speed in the light of COVID. COVID, if nothing else, has proved to us the role of procurement is significant here. So what can we do and what can we do more of at speed? You should be seeing a slide saying Scotland's carbon footprint. Here we go. So this is illustrated of the fact that 4/5 of Scotland's carbon footprint is associated with the goods and materials that we produce, that we consume, and that often we waste. That's a significant figure, it's a significant proportion. So buying circular is key to reducing the demand for resources, cutting our carbon emissions, and supporting innovation and investment in the new circular business models. Well, I call them new, they're really not so new business models within the supply chain to accelerate circular economy. It's a significant figure and we need to deploy that for circular purposes. So looking at the bigger picture here, Scottish Government in its programme for government has committed to mobilising the £11 billion per annum of public sector spend to address the climate emergency. And the twin emergencies that we've been faced with, the impact of COVID-19, means that planned procurement is changing as we speak. Now, obviously, we've been hearing a lot about furniture and office equipment, but I want to make a wider point about regarding what we have in use, what we're already using as material banks. So the points I'm making here apply to many other goods and equipment. We're looking at, Scottish Government, for example, is looking at the whole renovation of buildings, heat and fleet, as they discuss, insulation, the renovation of buildings, and we were talking about ultra low emission vehicles. We'll come back to that later on. But the point I'm trying to make here is perhaps we've got a greater appreciation than ever before of what we have available to us, even in the food and drink sector. Maybe some of the Scottish seafood that's traditionally been sent to all parts of Europe, perhaps we'll begin to appreciate what's closer to home. So it applies to many other sectors. The circular procurement, as Claire said in her introductory remarks, the circular procurement model you can see in there, the circular economy, starting with cleaner production, looking at extending lifespan of products, looking at how we can collect end of life, end of first life, let's say, and remanufacture, repurpose, reuse. The recycling, I'll talk about recycling as being not the only option. In fact, in many cases, it's the last option. And the circle is completed with where we really come in with procurement. If we are going to collaborate with suppliers, it should at least be on, at the very minimum, the redesign of products for longer life with less toxic materials, for recyclability. So the two main points I want to draw out of this slide in terms of what we could do on big picture procurement, if we're strategic about this, is that we'd be looking to design products that are more longer life, that are more recyclable, that are designed with second and third and fourth lives in mind at the very start of the process, that are less damaging in their content. But also the second point I want to bring out, and this has come roaring home to us in COVID circumstances, is valuing the skills, opportunities, and the jobs, the people that are involved in this circular economy. What I mean by that is people are on the brink of losing their jobs. If we have circular economy applied at speed and at scale, we have an opportunity to retain some of those jobs, to create more of them, and to build skills. I think everyone today has spoken about the skills opportunities that are associated with the circular economy. Public procurement has a huge role in driving that agenda. And the skills, I think, perhaps have been underappreciated to date. COVID has illustrated to me anyway, what services people deliver for us on our behalf that are often overlooked, neglected, and now are having a spotlight shone on them. So if we go to the next one, we should see Scotland's response to this. The 4 R's, there'll be a lot of R words in my presentation from here on. The 4 R's in terms of Scottish Economic Action Plan, if you like, in response to COVID and green recovery generally: respond, reset, restart, and recover. The challenges, as I've already started to describe, COVID has illustrated to many people the supply chain vulnerabilities that were associated with. PPE is the obvious one. People who weren't aware of supply chains at all and logistics challenges are now beginning to appreciate the extended, globalized nature of supply chains, and are beginning to appreciate what procurement could do if we recognize the nature of supply chains and recognize where the risks and opportunities are. So we've been faced with reduced security of supply and a loss of resilience in that supply chain. Perhaps the illustration of COVID in reducing suppliers, manufacturers, reducing the range of products that are available to people so that we have, as much as possible, managed to maintain some sort of security of supply. We need to learn lessons. And on the right-hand side of this slide, you can begin to see the responses that have emerged that we can learn from, not just through COVID, but through the whole circular economy drive. And I'm talking here about innovation and diversification. We've all heard the stories about distilleries turning themselves into hand sanitizer producers and 3D printing operations, producing parts for medical equipment. That sort of agile, quick, responsive behavior on the part of small companies in particular, and John made the point about small and agile, those are the sorts of things that I think public procurement in particular needs to tap into to a greater extent. And that helps to rebalance supply. Now, there is an argument that says we're going to get away from the globalized multi-tier supply chains and we'll bring everything back on shore. Actually, while there will be huge opportunities for more local sourcing, I think it's not a case of the pendulum swinging completely from one globalized model to more local sourcing. I think we're going to find some middle ground where we have an appreciation of risk and opportunity, and we'll find a middle way. But be that as it may, we're going to see greater opportunities for more local suppliers, for more social enterprises, for more charitable organizations. And we're going to, I hope, we're beginning to see a greater appreciation of resources that we have in use. And again, this happens more effectively, as far as I'm concerned, if we collaborate with suppliers and contractors, if we're willing to have that conversation about our shared goals and what we can do together. Collaboration is key to all of this. And when we're thinking about the future, for me, we need to think about offices not just being offices in the future. What are we doing to turn offices into new homes for people? And what is the social care of the future going to look like? What is social care environment going to look like? And where do furniture and other pieces of equipment fit into all of that? Okay, so the next one says the circular economy model. What should we be doing? We've heard lots of examples already today. I would like to take the same principles and apply them more generally across a range of goods and services. And here are the 4 R's, this is the theme of the day: repair, reuse, refurbish, and recycle. So we're saying it's not just about recycling. Look at where recycling is in this model. The old linear model that you see at the bottom is what we're moving away from. And the options that public procurement and others should be looking at is, first of all, repair. Use what you have in situ, reuse, and then refurbish, and then recycle. So I want to drum home the point here about what's possible, not just for furniture, but for other materials as well. Moving on at speed. Yes, of course, we've heard a lot about furniture. I just want to say something about the scale and the opportunities. If we moved furniture at scale in terms of looking at what the public sector buys, the nature of the public sector demand, and turned that towards a circular economy model, we'll have a completely different view. And here's the Circular Office as an illustration of what's possible. If I move to the next slide, I'll show you what I'm talking about. We've been hearing today about deployment to home workers, repurposing for reuse by other parts of the organisation or other parts of the public estate, schools, for example, or passing on to reuse organisations, Elaine's and John's. But I want to make the key point here about what I think we need is a more strategic approach generally, a category strategy for Scotland. So if we collaborated, obviously there are framework agreements in place across the public sector already on furniture and on other equipment, in health, in local government, as we've been hearing. But I would like to see a move towards a more strategic approach for the purchase of equipment such as furniture. And if we do it nationally, that doesn't mean there has to be one supplier covering the whole of Scotland. It could be that we have a strategic approach that says, let's have local supplier in a number of parts of Scotland and doing it on a regional basis that could help support not just the local economy, but actually the drive towards making best use of the materials that we have. That would require a great deal of cooperation across the public sector and across public sector and the supply chain. But I don't think there's any reason we shouldn't be looking into that, because the Netherlands has done it, Sweden and others have done it as well. So my final point, since I'm due to finish, the final point actually covers a fair bit of ground. In terms of circular procurement and the green recovery agenda, we're learning lessons from COVID around supply chain resilience, and we are looking to exploit in a good way the more agile, innovative and local supply chain opportunities that this presents us with. It does mean that we're looking for smaller, more flexible suppliers, like John, like Elaine, dare I say, and more social enterprises, more diversification. We're looking for the maximization of the skills and retraining opportunities that this opens up for us. And I've put some figures on the slide that show the number of jobs, 296 jobs for every 10,000 tonnes of product, if we're using it in refurbishment and reuse. My final point would be, since I've talked about more than furniture, the illustration on the slide, the procuring for repair, reuse, remanufacture, is one of the zero waste documents that will illustrate across a range of products and services, furniture as well, but playground equipment, cleaning, catering, construction products and the rest. If people are interested, that's one of the documents that's available that might help stimulate some more thought onto how we can expand this principle into more areas of supply. That's it from me. Thank you very much. Thanks for listening.
Thank you very much, Barbara. That was fascinating, and obviously we do work on a circular procurement project together, so the role of procurement is really important and is the key enabler really to sort of start achieving the change to our kind of business as usual as we know it. We will move on to just a bit of a kind of Q&A. I'll pass over to Lauren, who's been monitoring the chat as well. Still got a bit of time left, so that's okay.
Yes, so we've just got two that have come through. So one, maybe Elaine and John, and also everyone, all panelists will be able to maybe answer this question. So Lindsay Miller asks, on recycling and disposing of broken or very old electronic and IT equipment correctly, is there anything being done to make this easier? So in my experience, doing the right thing generally requires a little bit of effort and cost, so I can understand why it would discourage people. So maybe Elaine, because as you said in your presentation.
Yeah, disposing of electrical equipment is absolutely crucial that businesses do that in the right way. There's penalties for not doing it, and so it ends up people just store it away and store it away as a problem for another day. So we've recognised that within the Edinburgh Remake race. So We've launched, I don't want this just to be an advert for us because I'm sure there's other organisations that do the same, but we've launched our free IT disposal service for businesses. The reason we've done that is to make it a simple route for people to get rid of that waste problem. So we come and take all the stuff away, but the other part of the thing there is a circular economy model, because we then refurbish that IT equipment, even old stuff, broken stuff, that's absolutely great. We absolutely make use of it, and we either refurbish it and donate it to charities that need it, or sell it, and the income that we make, any profit, we then do to charity. But the other thing is we teach repair skills. Because of having that old broken stuff, we teach repair skills, and as Barbara noted, that there's jobs and things like that that come from being a circular economy. So training people, the future workforce, to have the skills of circular economy will be absolutely crucial as we move forward as well. So yeah, so Zero Waste Scotland will also be able to advise, but certainly I can provide some information on that as well. Waste is absolutely crucial that we do it in the right way, but there is a mechanism, and businesses just need to tap into it.
Thank you. I'm just looking at the quick questions now. So so Kelly just asked if the document that Barbara mentioned is available online. So yeah, all resources that have been shared and mentioned in the presentations will be sent to you in the follow-up emails, as well as the overall master presentation.
We've got just a couple of questions relating to furniture, so we thought maybe John, who has seen them, could address them before we sort of wrap up. That's okay?
Yeah, if we talk about, I think the first question came in about large scale. In the last 20 years, that's kind of where we've specialised. Large scale projects are invariably more about logistics management. So in the response I put on the chat room, we talk about London Fire Brigade. I think I put in 8,500. That's because I'm dyslexic. I think it was 5,800 should have gone in there. So my apologies. It wasn't 5.5. It wasn't 8.5. It was 5.8. That was 42 Arctic loads of furniture coming off a single site, which we achieved a 93% reuse and recycling rate. Part of what we did there was set up 3 social enterprises that could then supply that furniture back into the public sector. So the biggest one in Dundee, we set up the warehouses, we trained the staff, we fitted the whole thing up, and we agreed contracts with them to do that. I think the number that was mentioned was about 400. 400 is kind of day-to-day stuff that we can handle without too much difficulty. But it is all about the logistics. I did a talk a few years ago in Aberdeen to the oil industry, and the questions that came from the panel, I knew what I was going to get on the way back. And as I was the passenger in a car coming back, I was getting phone calls from people saying, we've got 4 Arctic loads of furniture sitting in the car park, can you take it please? This has to be planned. You cannot just dump this. And I'll pick up on Elaine's point that people often think, oh, the third sector, they want furniture, we'll just give it to them. Nobody actually wants your surplus furniture. It's too big, it's too bulky. There's no second-hand market, it's zero value. You have to look at the circular economy and say you're going to reuse the materials. And that will come neatly into the second question that was raised about some product being better than others. And they mentioned Steelcase and Miller. This is where I can put my hand up and say my early career was with Steelcase. And I know these products very, very well. There's no particular one that's better than others. In fact, the Steelcases and Herman Millers have inherent problems in that, yes, they can be remanufactured, but Miller in particular, only if you happen to have the Herman Miller toolkit to take things apart, because actually you can't use standard tooling, and they did that specifically in the 80s so that you always had to go back to them. Steelcase, yes, it can be done. They mentioned it's got an MDF top. MDF is actually the worst material to work with. From a technical point of view, the MDF that's used in furniture, when it's cut, has a very similar particle size to asbestos. You have to wear face masks. It's not an easy product to work with. You cannot just sand MDF. Chipboard is far better, but the simple answer is we've worked with pretty much every kind of furniture in the UK, from the major manufacturers like Steelcase, Miller, Aran, across the board. Some of the best ones are the Scandinavian. So if you have Schnaps, which is spelled Kinnarps, that is a fantastic product. It was designed in the 70s for a 50-year lifespan. And we are still remanufacturing 30-year-old Synapse product into new environments at the moment. So the issue is not so much what is the product, the issue is how are you actually going to manage this project? And it has to be planned. And the drawing I put up of the building for the local authority, we've been working with them for 22 years on all of their buildings. So we know what's coming up and we can plan it. This isn't something you can generally just say, I've got the problem now, I need it done. You have to plan this, and it comes into what Barbara was talking about, a change in psychology about actually we're now adopting this and it can be done. Yes, short term you can do it. We're taking orders at the moment from a local authority who want their office furniture converted to home desks, and we're turning that round within a week. And the first batches are going out tomorrow. Each week they're now delivering to their home offices. So furniture is actually a really boring product. And people like myself who've been in the industry for forever know it inside out. I'm less concerned about the product, more about how you're going to manage the project. And I'm very happy to talk to anyone about those things. But any furniture can actually be remanufactured.
Brilliant. No, thank you, John. I think, yeah, there's definitely a, obviously we'll share the presentation, which has John's details on it as well, so people can get in touch with you directly if they have any follow-up questions.
More than happy to chat to anyone.
Of course. Brilliant. Right, I do apologise, we're running slightly over, but this has been a really interesting discussion, and we just have a quick sort of wrap up in terms of just, you know, kind of summarising what we've heard through the presentations and what's been discussed in terms of, you know, looking at this as an opportunity to build back better in the post-COVID world that we're all sort of running towards, I suppose. And I just pass over to Claire, if that's okay, to kind of wrap up the day for us.
Yeah, so the themes we saw today are very much about adapting to the new normal. So yeah, this is a good, if not now, when. Actually, I saw this in a tote bag at Glastonbury Festival last year, and it's very, very true. Yeah, the time is now with green recovery and adapting to the new normal. The time to make changes and to do things differently is right now, and to plan it right now. Circularity is key. Buying new should be the least attractive option. That's really, really important. It's very much about making the most of what we have right now to, you know, to reduce carbon emissions and to save money and create jobs as well, as you might see in the remanufacturing industry. And bringing that back into Scotland and increasing remanufacturing could very much increase jobs, as can repair skills, and teaching repair and repair skills very much as well can also help to generate jobs in the local economy. So very, very important right now. Just going to minimise this. And new normal, new start. So there's a real opportunity to do things differently and better. I'm really, really keen to work with any of you that are interested in doing something different right now. Happy to help. That's what the ProCirc project is all about as well, is helping people to implement circular working practices using procurement as a mechanism, but absolutely can help people with that. Just moving on. Is there another slide after this, Bella?
No, that was it.
Oh,
So it was just,
oh, right,
you know,
okay. I thought there was another one at the end. Sorry.
No,
Pass
it was
you back.
just, yep, that was just as a kind of summary, and obviously, you know, just as a reminder that we are here to help. We have resources and means through ProCirc and obviously Zero Waste Scotland, and also, you know, Lauren through Circular Edinburgh as well, if you'd like to just kind of remind everyone of the support available.
Yeah, so we are here. We offer, we can have, you know, a quick call with you after looking at the webinar today, if you're interested in finding out more information or just finding out kind of what opportunities or things that you can do within your office space. We're very happy to have a quick call with you and kind of learn what you're wanting to do or what challenges you're facing. And then, yes, we can, you know, forward you on to Spella and Claire at Zero Waste Scotland to get a bit more expert knowledge on procurement if that's what you need. So yeah, I'll be sending out a follow-up email this afternoon with all our details on. So yes, if you're interested in talking to us, just let us know and we can set up any calls.
Yep. Just before we let you go, is just a very brief little poll, which is basically, instead of, you know, sending you a bit of a feedback a request in an email after the session, we just invite you to kind of feedback during the webinar. It just helps Circular Edinburgh as well as us to, you know, see if these sessions are well put together. Yeah. And as this kind of goes through, I would just like to thank you to all the speakers, all the panelists. It was a really fantastic session, and thank you to everyone who attended, and apologies for running slightly over, but you know, it's better to do that than cut us short during an interesting discussion. And we hope to see you again at next webinar, and we'll be in touch with all the contact details and follow-up information and the resources that have been highlighted through this session. So thank you very much.